Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodananda Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Astasata Shri Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopnath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Gaura Premananda. Hari Hari Bolo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're in the 10th canto, chapter 50, which is Krishna establishes Dwarka. And so read 37, 38. Sankhya Dundubayo Nedur Beri Turyani Anekasha Vina Venu Mridangani Puram Pravishati Prabhav Sankhya Dudumbayo Nedur Bere Turyan Yanekasha Vina Venu Mridangani Puram Pravishati Prabhav Shankha Dundubayo Nedur Beri Turyan Yanekasha Vina Venu Mridangani Puram Pravishati Prabhav. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll read the next one, and then we'll do the word for word. Siktamargam rishtachanam patak kabir abhyalankritam nirgushtam brahmakoshena kautuka badhatoranam. So shankha, conch shells, dundubayaha, kettle drums, Neduhu, sounded. Beri, drums. Turyani, horns. Anekasha, many at once. Vina Venu Mridangani, Vinas, flutes, and mridanga drums. Puram, the city, Mathura. Pravishati, as he entered. Prabhu, the Lord. Sikta, sprinkled with water. Margam, its boulevards. Hrishta, joyful. Janam, its citizens. Vatakabihi, with banners. Habhyalankritam, abundantly decorated. Nirgushtam, resounding. Brahma, of the Vedas. Goshena, with chanting. Kautuka, festive. Habata, ornaments. Toranam, on its gateways. So, translation, as the Lord entered his city, conch shells and kettle drums sounded, and many drums, horns, venas, flutes, and mridangas played in concert. The boulevards were sprinkled with water. There were banners everywhere, and the gates were decorated for the celebration. The citizens were elated, and the city resounded with the chanting of the Vedic hymns. So we can repeat. As the Lord entered his city, conch shells and kettle drums sounded, and many drums, horns, venas, flutes, and mridangas played in concert. The boulevards were sprinkled with water. There were banners everywhere, and the gates were decorated for the celebration. The citizens were elated, and the city resounded with the chanting of Vedic hymns. So there's no purport, and basically, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this verse describes the city. Jiva Goswami and Sanatan Goswami share basically the exact same thing. So it's really a descriptive verse. So I'm going to go to 39 and then 40. So 39. Nicha yamano naripir malyadadyak kakshantang kurai nirikshamanasasnenam prityut kalita lochainai. As the women of the city affectionately looked at the Lord, their eyes wide open with love, they scattered flower garlands, yogurt, parched rice, and newly grown sprouts upon him. And the purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, just share briefly that all this is taking place as Lord Krishna enters the city of Mathura. And so, if we look at the translations, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur basically shares the same thing, only some grammatical differences in Prabhu and Prabhu, being locative and another nominative, which is name and place and location. And then Jiva Goswami and Sanatan Goswami shared the same thing. Jiva Goswami sharing, and why I'm going to the next verse is, however, this verse may be read with the next verse instead, so they're kind of encapsulated as a whole. So I'm going to do that and go to text 40 and read that purport. Text 40. Ayodhanagatam vitam anantam virabhushanam yadurajaya tat sarvam arharitam pradishat prabhu. Lord Krishna then presented to the Yadu king all the wealth that had fallen on the battlefield, namely the countless ornaments of the dead warriors. And so, purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds that the jeweled ornaments had also been collected from the horses and other animals. What might be added here for the sake of the squeamish is that Jarasandha came to Mathura with the clear intention of slaughtering every last man in the city, including Krishna and Balaram. It is out of the causeless mercy of the Lord that he gives the conditioned souls a taste of their own medicine, and thus helps them become more sensitive to the laws of nature and the existence of a supreme God. Ultimately, Krishna awarded Jarasandha and others killed on the battlefield with spiritual liberation. The Lord is strict, but he is not malicious. In fact, he is an ocean of mercy. So Omigana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I want to read the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this 40th verse is very simple and plain in that Krishna presented Ugrasena with all the ornaments of the bodies from the soldiers which had fallen on the battlefield. And then Jiva Goswami comments basically that the same thing is that these ornaments from the dead soldiers were unlimited in number and the value beyond estimate. He gave everything to Ugrasena, whom he personally enthroned, with respect suitable for a king, since he himself was indifferent to such wealth, observing the rules of etiquette. And Sanatana Goswami's is the exact same. So we'll just go with that. So Omigana Timiranda Shagananjana. This really stood out to me, just in thinking about how it would be so hard, so easy to misjudge, Krishna. And I was thinking about how and what is missing in particular in today's world of understanding, because there's so many understandings from so many different philosophies and so much heinous activities that are going on with all the different wars and everything that's happening. And one of the things that I really notice in my conversations with a lot of people that seems to be missing and that should be more prevalent is this understanding of karma, because it gives such an understanding of why what's happening. And so often everybody gets tied up in all these things on one side or the other. You've got, the liberals and the conservatives, and you've got all these battles going on, and everybody's trying to prove their point and make their stand, and then people get wrapped up into it emotionally and all these different things. But then there's this lack of understanding of, well, then why are all these things happening? Why are all these things going on? And karma is such a perfect explanation of why all these different things happen, why bad things happen to good people and why good things happen to bad people. And so if people just had this simple this simple understanding and this simple education of understanding, why things are happening, then people would, be more inclined. That's the other thing, is that karma really helps people understand and take responsibility for their actions, right? Because so often everybody wants everybody else to pay. I get that in so many different conversations when I bring up karma, in certain situations. Say, well, I hope so-and-so gets their karma. And so often they're okay with everybody else getting karma, but they're not okay with their own actions and taking responsibility. And that's what karma's about. And what stood out to me in thinking about this verse is that the Lord, Krishna, is strict, but he is not malicious, right? And that in fact he's an ocean of mercy. And the whole reason why karma exists is to help other people understand, the actions that they've taken and the suffering that they've caused another living entity. And so that they have to walk lifetimes, not just a mile in somebody else's shoes, but a lifetime in, getting these reactions, so that they'll come to their senses of understanding that their actions have an impact, that their actions affect other people. They affect them, emotionally, physically, mentally, so many different ways that we have to understand what this is. And so, and I get that all the time, even with my, when I talk to my, I have that opportunity to bring it up, like with my parents, or my friends. and understanding this thing, it makes sense to them, but then you see them get wrapped back into the modes of nature and into their emotions and carried away with all that and away from the logic and understanding of all these things. And so, again, just understanding how he's not, malicious and thinking of going into, I want to go a little bit deeper into understanding Krishna's mercy through some verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Because I think it's really important for us to understand, and especially too, as we've taken up this devotional service and we've accepted a spiritual master, and understanding that the spiritual master, being connected to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, and understanding that the actions that he takes, or that the spiritual master takes, are not meant to be malicious. They're to help us. They may hit the nail on the head and hit very tender spots in our mentality and our thinking and in our consciousness, but it's really all due to mercy. It's really all due to realign us with the understanding of what direction we should be going in. And not to mess around with these things, right? Because we can waste so much time doing so many different things. And so it's the spiritual master's responsibility to call us on these things. And sometimes we could get frustrated or irritated or whatever, but ultimately it's because we're responsible for our actions, and they're trying to remind us of that, right? And one of the things that this is helping us understand, especially me for this verse, is understanding, trying to understand who Krishna is. And that takes realization through devotional service and our intelligence. And then, at the same time, trying to, because we hear this all the time, is that understand, especially when we have taken initiation, we have taken up the process of devotional service. My Gurudev has shared that anything that happens to us is Krishna's arrangement, right? And so accepting that personal responsibility. So I'm going to go back and go through the Bhagavad Gita a little bit and understanding this ocean of mercy and understanding, the purpose behind everything is that Krishna loves every living entity. And he doesn't want them to suffer, but he also understands that they have free will and they're going to make those choices. And so the best remedy is to put them in circumstances that will help them understand that this is a waste of time. And certainly it may take lifetimes, but it's not an eternal situation. Krishna is just so compassionate and so merciful, and we find that especially as devotees. Understanding the dynamic, and I was thinking about this because I've been talking about this with some of the devotees, is there's so many different layers to Krishna's reconditioning us, right? Because we're in association of the devotees, which is incredibly valuable, and it's like, a chintamani, an opportunity to be in the association of the devotees is so unique, but it's also incredibly challenging because Krishna utilizes the devotees in all our circumstances in this social setting to bring up our weaknesses, to show us where we need to build our strength, right? And what's amazing about it is that, we can, sometimes if we have a challenge with different devotees, we can blame them. But what's really interesting is Krishna is working on so many different levels that, with all the different devotees that may be challenging us, Krishna's helping us become stronger, and pointing up the things that we need to work on. And at the same time, he may be doing the same thing for the other devotee that we're having an exchange with or a challenge with. And so there's all these different layers of interchange. It's not, and so on one level, we do have challenges and we do have things that we need to work on. At the same time, Krishna is trying to help us become stronger in our devotional service. So everything that he does is, for our betterment in Krishna consciousness. So one of the things that I did was I went to the Bhagavad Gita. One of my favorite things to do, I love dictionaries, and then I love, especially in the Bhagavad Gita, they've got the general index, and you can go through, and I mean, you can almost have a whole class just by looking at the index. So I went to looking at the mercy of Krishna, and one of the first ones that came up is the mercy of Krishna in accompanying the soul is super soul. So I want to read that verse, which is chapter 13, text 21. Right. And so, according to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters. I love the way Prabhupada puts things. Because I've been thinking about my body as like a bodysuit, and how we step into this spacesuit or this bodysuit, we get wired up, and we have all these different tendencies that come with the body, right? We're not the body, but because we're wired into it, we can be led around by it. So when I read this, it was kind of interesting. But once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because of the body. Being matter acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the supersoul is with the individual soul. And that's explained in the Vedas, the Mundaka Upanishad 3.111, that the Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul in all circumstances and is present as the supersoul or Paramatma. And I was thinking about that too, just like we're never alone. Right, in all these circumstances that we go through, and all this karma, because karma is something else that I talk to when I try to explain to people that have doubts about, karma or reincarnation and all these things, is that it's a law of nature. It's just like the law of gravity. I explained that to my friend because she's chanting and offering her food and doing, some small things devotionally. She has a son who, when he was very small, pulled a coffee pot off the counter by the cord, and it ended up pouring on his back. And so I tried to explain to her that the law of karma is similar, that it doesn't differentiate, by age or lack of knowledge, that the coffee pot shouldn't be pulled by the cord. It acts like the law of nature. And so, there's this need, and that can't be changed. It's one of the laws of nature. It's just like a child, just because they don't know that it doesn't act, no, it will act. And that's what Prabhupada's sharing here. But then we have this mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is willing to accompany each and all the living entities and be there with us at all time. And just think about it, he has to walk through all the nonsense and things that we think and things that we say and things that we do, yet he's still willing to be there, right? It's like a loving parent. He's willing to be there and, in our heart and walk through all that nonsense. And then when there's this crack in our understanding and our, that the free will or the willingness to open our heart just a little bit to Krishna consciousness, he'll make that arrangement. He'll make that arrangement where you come into contact through, books or Sankirtan or, some small association where you get the connection with the devotees, and then your devotional life begins. And that's why he's there. He's waiting for us to open our heart and, to move towards him. So it's just, at least for me, thinking of all the things that I ever did, that Krishna was there with me, is just kind of overwhelming, to be quite honest, that he's willing to do that, because his love is that great. And yes, he's strict, but he's not malicious, And so The next one that I came across was his causeless mercy. Oh, yes, this one. The divine energy of mind consisting, and this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 14. Make sure I got time. The divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. The Supreme Personality of God has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine due to contact with the material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord due to contamination by inferior matter. Their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nityabhata, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the Supreme Will. So we can see that everything is coming from Krishna, everything we come in contact with, every circumstance. There's nothing that's by chance. Everything is by Krishna's arrangement for the benefit of the living entity. And so the living entity cannot overcome this nature. And so we get deeper into the purport, and it talks about, this the gunas, or the modes, and it's really interesting. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands of feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound, because the bound cannot help the bound. The rescuer is liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna, or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without superior help, intelligence, and guidance, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. And this reminded me before two things. One, I had an experience. I was in a very compromising situation, and I remembered one of my friends who had schizophrenia. Struggled really, really, really hard, and my heart was breaking, because he, in general, was a very good person. He would literally give you the back, your shirt, oh wow, that's a great shirt. He'd literally take it off. He was just a kind-hearted person, but obviously had to work through some things, had the schizophrenia. I remember lying in bed and thinking, I would be willing to do anything to get him out of that situation, and, release him from that suffering, because it's really intense. But as I was lying in bed, there was this massive black weight that was on me, and I couldn't move it. And I was kind of semi-dream state, and I couldn't move it, and was struggling really hard. But what I came to realize is that it was too big for me to move. And this is some of what Prabhupada's sharing is that there's no way we can get out of the clutches of material nature without Krishna consciousness. This was before I came to Krishna consciousness. But I had that realization that it was too big, that I had to let whatever was going to work things out with him, work them out. Because it's too big for us to be able to touch. And I had another personal experience where I was personally struggling. It's really kind of interesting. And I remember the same thing, that I was lying down, and I was having these waves of, I can't even really explain it, but just frustration, anger, and, not being able to cope with some personal things, but I couldn't move because I really felt like Maya was saying, okay, if you want to have a temper tantrum and you want to be, tied into all this pity pool and emotional stuff, I'm going to hold you there. And I really couldn't get up. It was really interesting. And I was on my way. I was going to be going to India. I called my Gurudev and I told him I just don't think I can go because I'm just not in a good place to go. And he said, no, I think it'll be good for you to go. But I still called the airlines because I was going to cancel the ticket and see if I could rearrange it, right? I called. The lady picked up and she said, hello, this is Maya. Can I help you? And I just was, oh, and I said a few expletive words based on my material training, but I was blown away. And I was like, okay, all right, Krishna. And I did end up going. But, the thing is that we can't do this by ourselves, right? The weight is too heavy. Maya is too big. She's so much stronger than we are. The only way that we can actually get out of this is by taking shelter of Krishna and the spiritual master. That is the only way for being able to do this. And so, again, as we're working through and we're struggling through and we're joyful in our Krishna consciousness, just trying to keep the reminder that, when things do get difficult, when they get, challenging, that it's not because the spiritual master or Krishna are, malicious in any form. It's because of their mercy, because they know, they're looking at and they want to see what your potential is and to encourage that potential. And so it's out of love. It's out of unconditional love that they're there. And I just have one more. Let me see if I can find it. Probably should have had it pulled up. Sorry. Oh, please let me find it. Anyway, basically it was from a thought for the day, and it's like, don't look at all the shortcomings, but see the spiritual potential, right, in everybody. That's really, and see your own spiritual potential, right? Some of us, at least including myself, have a tendency, I'm so much better at it not beating myself up, but we can beat ourselves up for our shortcomings. Just take it intellectually. Just see that you have challenges, face them, work on them, go deeper into your devotional service, and then just keep going and realize that, we all have this beautiful spiritual potential. So try to find ways to enliven that spiritual potential. You don't necessarily focus on the negative things. You're aware of it. You're introspective. But then, give it a higher taste. Dive in deeper to your chanting. Dive in deeper to your devotional service. Dive deeper into serving the devotees. And find, and so adjusting that attitude, because it's so easy not to do that or let that kind of overtake you. And sometimes it's even small things. Like I remember for some reason it's so weird. I would be perfectly fine with making offerings to my deities, but then I would get this little internal, I don't know what you'd call it, like discontent. Like I didn't want to change all the water cups. I was like, I'll change one, but I don't want to do all of them. There's too many of them. It's taking too much time. But obviously, so my mind needed a mental adjustment. So these adjustments have to happen on a very subtle level, or can happen on a very subtle level. So just being cognizant of then giving yourself a higher taste, because that's what's really going to carry you and connect you, to that source. And it's why my Gurudev stresses so much going to, the full morning program is because that's where our shelter is. There was somebody I was talking to the other day about this too, is that there was somebody who was doing past life regressions, and then they would go through this whole ritual to get rid of the negative energy. And so somebody asked him about it. My spiritual master said, if you go to the morning program, that's your protection. You don't have to worry about all those other things, right? So that's where our spiritual protection is the ways and how much and what attitude we have in connecting. Because we can chant our rounds. We've got 16 rounds to chant, and we can do that. But how are we going to chant our rounds? How personal are we going to make those rounds? It's only 16 rounds, and we do have so many different things to do, but the degree and how personal we make and how intensely we connect, and using a sankalpa or an intention before is which is helpful, but that applies to everything. Like I try to do that, partly because of my nature of being a little bit OCD, type A personality, is like I'm very detailed about putting all the jewelry away, but then I try to remember why I'm doing that and putting everything back in the almost exact same place, so that when the devotees come down, there may be something they need off the altar, they're panicked because they know there's this specific piece they need, and they know where it is. If I put it in the same place every time, then it's going to cause them less stress, and they'll know exactly where it is. They can go and get it, and then they can be relieved of stress. It's the mode of goodness to keep it organized. And so I do all those things, that and the fact that all those things are non-different than Lord Nityananda and Balaram. It's like, non-different, all the paraphernalia. But it's to serve. So when I do that, and then the doors get closed pretty hard sometimes, so everything gets scooted up or tumbled. So I try to line it back out again to serve the devotees. And then we want to try to do that in all our different devotional services. How we present all the offerings on the plate to Lord Krishna, or when we serve the devotees, if we happen to have them over, of really connecting with them and, giving them our heart's intention, on some level. So just, I guess, like, bringing it all back down to making everything personal, and why you're doing it, that you're not doing it just from rote, knowledge or activity where it's, I'm probably not going to think of ritualistic, where things are ritualistic, because it's so easy to do your rounds ritualistically. It's so easy to, just boom, 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 throw everything in a certain place, or just get things done to get them done. But it's about making it personal. It's about making it personal when you chant your rounds. It's about making it personal when you associate with the devotees and everything, because those things are what lead to having a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of God, and through devotional service of following the instructions of the spiritual master and having a relationship with a spiritual master, so you can learn how to have a personal relationship with Krishna and the devotees, because we come conditioned to be selfish and self-centered, and so this is about the process of being personal, and again taking care of yourself. But I think that's really we've got a few more minutes. If anybody has any thoughts or questions, personal experiences. Right. Which to me kind of encapsulates, at least this journey that we're on, and the process of realizing, that Krishna is not malicious, but he's merciful. And on this journey of realizing and making it a personal process and coming to the highest level devotional service where that kind of thing takes place. You know, because that to me exemplifies somebody who's fully connected to Krishna, so that when they see him, there's that much joy that everything is, you know, spiritually enlivened and produced. So, yeah. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the association of the devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Radha Golokananda Ki Jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Bhagom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Divan Vikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham
Tamaham Bhajami. Namaho Vishnu Pataya Krishna Prastaya Mutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Macha Negi Nivesesha Janyavadi Mashachagore's a Taranay. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Siva Sati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ho Sri Advaita Gadadha Siva Sati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Siva Sati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Siva Sati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Siva Sati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama,